It's about to go down with Marc and Cathey, a live coaching show about dropping ideas. Marc and Cathey coach and have conversations with brilliant idea creators who are reimagining the world through the expression of their words, thoughts, and actions.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to It's About to Go Down. I am Marc Williams.
I'm Cathey Armillas. So happy to have Lou Radja on our show again. Okay, so check it out, y'all. Lou was our friend that we called on, and we're like, wow, Lou, you are one of the most amazing speakers, leaders we know. Like, we're starting this show. This is what, 4 years ago, Marc? We're starting this show. We just named it It's About to Go Down. And we're like, who could be our first guest? And guess who it was? Lou Radja. And Lou, he's our friend. He's a father. He is a lover of mangoes. If you ask him about that, he will go off. So, but today we're going to bring it back to kind of where, we talked about something different. The first episode we did with him, episode 1, season 1, we talked about dancing in the rain and some of the wisdom that Lou brings. But today we decided to all talk about the shared platform of speaking. We all do it. We've shared the platform together. We're going to talk about the art of speaking, the science, and really the practicality of it. How did we go from being non-professional speakers to professional speakers and beyond? Lou Radja, welcome to our show again, my friend.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Cathey. Thank you, Marc. Thanks for having me. Super excited. And thank you for bringing up mangoes. I truly believe that mangoes are a source of happiness and joy. So if you're not happy in your life right now, it's because of mango deficiency. So I would encourage all of you to eat as many mangoes as you possibly can and watch your happiness quota go up. Let's go. I'm here.
Let's go. Maybe Lou, why don't we start from the beginning of your speaking career? Because I know you have this awesome story. Why don't we start there?
Oh, wow. The origin of speaking for me started with my father. Age 7, I was a kid growing up in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And my father's a professor at the university. We're playing around. What is this thing called? Teeter-totter, where you have kids on both sides.
Oh,
Yep.
the seesaw.
Yeah, exactly. There's supposed to be one on each side. This is the Congo. We had like 4 people on each side. And I was one of the unfortunate one on one side and got my hand jammed right in the middle and split my one of my fingers. And they rushed me to the hospital. They had to do some procedure. And then they took me to the University of Kisangani, where my father was a professor. So it was the first time I saw my dad in his element. So here he was teaching. We're looking at probably 500 plus students. And so here's my dad on one side and about 500 students on the other. Now, my 7-year-old brain is trying to compute what's happening because I don't know what he really does. And I'm thinking, how cool is it? My dad must be a really cool person, must be sharing something so meaningful to have 500 plus people on one side paying attention. And that really left an impression on me. How to have the gift of sharing, developing it, connecting with people, providing value. And that stayed with me for a long time, decades. I just didn't know how to turn that into a profession, into something that I do for a living, into something that makes a difference. But that's where it all started. Age 7, watching my dad, my hero, and trying to follow in his footsteps. And here we are.
Womb. Marc, it's kind of funny because I've never heard yours, actually.
Well, first of all, following Lou with any story is like, come on.
I know, right?
Lou, thank you for sharing that because you inspired me to think a little bit deeper. I mean, I think it really all started for me when I was in the second grade in Mrs. McIntyre's class. I always talk about Mrs. McIntyre. And we had to do some kind of a presentation. I don't remember what it was in the second grade. All I know is that I was an avid television watcher. And there was this Greyhound bus commercial.
Mm.
And I don't remember exactly how the jingle was, but I just knew that in this presentation, which by the way, we had to create our own story. Hence, Introduction to Storytelling 101. Thank you, Mrs. McIntyre, wherever you are on the planet. She introduced me to storytelling. And I just remember inserting this one line into the story. It was about vampires. It must have been around Halloween. And I said this one line, I sort of sang it, Transylvania Trailway Bus. And the whole class started cracking up. And it was my first time as an only child saying something that got a reaction, a favorable reaction. And it came from storytelling, it came from a touch of humor, and it came from somebody encouraging me. Yes. And that's why I will say, ultimately, what really got me into this and really got me this far, I'm going to give 4 people this credit. Mrs. McIntyre for being an amazing teacher who gave us tough work in the second grade. When I speak, I think about challenging your mind. Mr. Trout, my high school drama teacher, who saw something in me that I didn't see. And so when I speak, I try to see things in people that they don't see. This is Brady, my math teacher in high school, taught us trig. I couldn't tell you a damn thing about trig right now. But what I can tell you is she made it so simple that when I was in her class, I felt like I knew the world. I try to break things down in a simple way. And then, of course, there's Mrs. Paul Mary, my drama club teacher, who just had the kindest hearts of hearts. And so I try to bring that heart into speaking. Ultimately, you asked me how I got into this. Yeah, it was storytelling in the second grade. Yeah, it was getting my fellow second graders to laugh. But ultimately, it was sitting in a classroom and watching some amazing teachers transform lives. That's what got me into this.
Wow. It's so cool to listen to you both. It's hard. Not a lot of people would go, oh, what were the steps that got me to right here? Like the exact thing that I'm doing right now. But I heard something today that I think is really cool. The thing said, there's a piece of you in the world everywhere. There's somebody out there that you befriended that you might not even remember that's inspired by you. There's somebody that's watching you. There's somebody that you showed kindness to. There's somebody that you showed empathy to. There's somebody that you spoke on a stage to 500 students or something in the Congo. And one kid watching makes it like, I'm sure you weren't the only one affected, Lou in that case, and Marc in the case of your teachers. It's so interesting to think. For me, my story really was when I was in high school. This is where I can really make the connection. There was a guy named David Toma who was going around and speaking. He was an anti-drug speaker, and he was so successful in his speaking that he would tell the administrators of the school, just put trash cans outside of the auditoriums, and you have to promise I'm going to go in there and tell the kids to get rid of their drugs. And we have to make it a safe thing. No questions asked. They throw their drugs in the trash. No questions asked. This guy would come, speak to my high school, a couple thousand kids, and fill up trash cans of drugs. And I just never saw somebody speak that effectively, especially to kids, teenagers, right? It's like there's probably a lot of parents out there going, if you can tell me how to speak to a teenager, oh, I'm listening, right? He was just so powerful. And maybe he connected to me because he was so Italian. Like he was so Italian. Kind of reminded me of my grandfather. And that one person in that one moment, one speck of time, looking back was somebody that opened the door to make me think speaking could be a really cool thing to do.
That is awesome. That's an amazing story. And you just, once that fire is lit, and it's up to you, it's up to us to keep that flame going. And then decades later, you're doing it as a profession, as a passion, as a mission. So it's quite amazing full circle from those humble beginnings to where we all are right now. It's pretty special.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've all kind of made that bridge and crossover too, to not just doing it because it was fun, but we're all using it professionally and getting paid. So we should probably talk about that for a minute.
Are you kidding me? Let's go.
Let's go. Let's
How,
freaking
how,
go.
how do you, okay, look, success leaves clues. So
Mm.
if you want to do something, find people who've done it and take them to lunch or take them to coffee and bring your legal pad and a pen and ask them a ton of questions. Okay, that's what you do. So that's what happened with me. Fast forward to meeting Dion Jordan. This is
Mm,
around 2008. Dion Jordan is an amazing human being, an amazing motivational speaker and trainer. And he was where I wanted to be. And so I had a regular job like everybody else, good benefits, good everything. But inside, I had that voice that would tell me, Lou, this is not fully, who you're about. So maybe you should just have the courage to start your own thing and live your passion through speaking and training and coaching. But I just didn't know how. And so seeing Dion Jordan do what he does, I walked up to him and I said, hey, I want to take you to lunch and ask him a ton of questions. And he was super generous. We
mm,
sat down and I literally took the blueprint from him, the vehicle, the structure, and then I would put my own soul into it. But I always encourage people to find people who have done what you're trying to do, and then get that blueprint. And Dion Jordan was that for me. And the way my father puts it, when you take the elevator to the top, always send it back down for someone else. And
mm,
Dion did that for me. And so now I'm incredibly generous helping anybody that wants to get into the speaking business and sharing all of my do's and don'ts. A lot more mistakes, a lot more failures because you learn more from your failures anyway. So I'm very
mm,
generous in sharing all of those pitfalls. But Dion was that for me. And once I got his blueprint, now I had to develop the courage to put myself out there and face rejections and face silence and face imposter syndrome and face doubt and
mm.
face fear. But just do it again, 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 and again until you get better. So there's no shortcut. I wish there were, but that was it for me. That's how it went from being an amateur to a professional.
Mm.
Mm.
For me, the lesson came from always giving your best. And I remember when I met this lady who was doing a workshop somewhere in Queens. Can't remember where. Probably somewhere in the Queens Marriott for some conference. Her name, it'll come to me. Um, she had spoken and she had given this awesome workshop. And I just remember I got to meet this person because she just did a workshop at a level that I would love to be able to do it at. And so I ended up talking to her and getting a copy of her book. Title of the book skips my name right now. And then we went out to lunch. You talk about going out to lunch? We went out to lunch and I took all of these mental notes. And I remember we were sitting at a Mexican restaurant. That's how much I do remember. We were sitting at a Mexican restaurant. And that's when I learned that this person who is doing what I want to do lives all the way on the other side of the planet in Oregon.
Come on. Come on.
After I met Cathey and I learned about all that she was doing, I just, not only from her spirit and her vibe, just as a person, I was just soaking in everything. And I think a pivotal point for me about giving my best was the first time I had ever been offered a fee. It was from a former student of mine who started his own karate school. And they were doing a black belt ceremony. And he says, Mr. Williams, I hear you speaking. Can you come over for our black belt ceremony and say something inspirational to the kids? And I called up Cathey. And I remember talking to Cathey about, I don't know what I should charge. And Cathey, I don't know if you remember saying this, but you said, tell him that I'm going to give my best. And you just give your best. And I didn't know what his best was going to be, right? And I will tell you that his best wasn't very much. But I learned that day, no matter what, you always show up giving your best. And that has driven me as a speaker to then get my value and to continue working on my value. But no matter what they can afford, I always come bringing my best because that's your brand.
Well, you're going to love how this circle just connects. I don't remember telling you that day, but you know who told me that? Lou Radja. I will never forget the day he told me that. I was just starting and we didn't go to lunch. I think we always go to this coffee shop in the Portland area called Ava's. It was our space. And so we met there many times. And one of the times he said that to me. And it was something that made an impression on me because at that point I was just starting my journey. So this is prior to that. I was just starting my journey. And one of the things he shared is like, you're going to, as you continue to grow, when you're first starting out, you're not going to get these 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 speaking gigs. You're going to have to make your way up. And Lou has just been a wealth of wisdom and knowledge for me. And it's things like that where you can have a great conversation with a potential client and we can both have dignity about it. You can tell your former student, like, I want to show up. So you give me your best and I'll give you mine. Oh, what a beautiful concept. Came from Lou. So when you were saying it, I was like, oh, this is so great. This is so great. Well, for people watching, Lou, you said something earlier. You said you just have to go out there and do it. And at that moment, I believe when you were doing that, there probably wasn't and still isn't really a lot of options for people that want to professionally speak to really practice because there's Toastmasters and that's a good organization and it's worldwide and there's people that go to it, but they're not really driven for professional speakers. And then you have NSA, the National Speakers Association, and it's more about the business of speaking. And so we end up out in this world. We're out in the world and we're like, well, I don't really want to practice on my paying clients. My family's probably tired of hearing me talk. Where can I do this? And I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful that all three of us are talking about this because Lou really helped me to step out into my career. And Marc, you and I had lots of conversations. But Marc and I started this organization, this online community over a year ago, Speaker Skills Academy, for that very purpose. And it wasn't just for people that want to speak professionally, because as we know, it's awesome. But really, we kind of wanted to have a place where people could be vulnerable and drill and practice. So all of this led us to that. So that's something I'm incredibly proud of is that community.
Yeah, that's a big one, Cathey. Like in the beginning, I can try to sell you, I don't know, a product, a cell phone, a car, or anything like that. And, if you like it, great. If you don't, great. But we're selling ourselves. And so I wasn't ready
Mm,
for kind of the introspection and really the pain that comes from just all of your insecurities coming back up, having to start a business where you are the talent, you are the product. Boy, did I need therapy, because what happens is you go into this stuff, and you're looking at an audience. You're not sure if you quote unquote, deserve to be there. Who are you to share your wisdom with them? And that in the beginning, for me, I wasn't ready for all of my shadows, all of my fears, all of my insecurities to just pop back up. And then to go back in the arena over and over and over and over and build confidence, build confidence. And so I want to share a story. I used to wear a mask. I used to wear a mask because I I mean, I'm a kid that grew up in the Congo, climbing mango trees, walking barefoot, and here I am in the U.S. meeting, all these amazing corporations and businesses and organizations, and I'm going, I don't know, do I belong? Do I not belong? And so I'm questioning. So wearing the mask for me was I got a suit and tie. Like I had a shirt, a tie, and a suit because I'm thinking that's what the audience wants to see or hear. And I would be much more credible and believable if I looked the part. And so that was my mask. And
mm,
I wore it in different fashion. And that was always an interesting internal conversation because your inner voice is saying, this is not you. But your outer voice is saying, well, this is what the audience or the market requires. And so there was this conflict between the inner Lou and the outer Lou. And it took me a while. And I remember a training that I was doing in Beaverton on leadership. And I go into my closet, there's a shirt, there's a couple more shirt, there's a suit, and I'm about to reach for it. But on the right side was my Afro couture, my African attire, in which I'm very comfortable in. And I just had come on, Lou, how long are you going to do this? Let's just remove this mask. And if they like
mm,
you, great. If they don't, great. But at least you're going to be yourself. And
mm,
so I clearly remember that day removing that mask and showing my authentic self and start sharing my own personal story, my tragedy, my fear, my triumph, and the connection with the audience just took off. But clearly that was an example where building my own confidence and then feeling comfortable being myself and vulnerable and real, that accelerated my career as a speaker. And so it didn't really matter the reps after that because I was myself. And that to me was my biggest aha or my biggest turning point in my speaking career. Because, the easiest thing you can be is yourself. The hardest thing you can be is someone else. and I've been doing the other all this time. And it was, I think it was about time for me to return to who I really am, and that's freedom. That's beautiful.
Mm.
That's such a beautiful and relatable message, because I think so many people struggle with just speaking in general. And I think so much of it comes back to, what are people thinking of me?
Mm.
And so there's sometimes a discomfort and a doubt. And dare we use that word, imposter syndrome? Like, who am I really to be up there, right? And and then you start putting all of these masks and these suit and ties and everything on. I wish we could find the comfort in being who we authentically are.
Hello.
That's so hard. So hard. I wonder, like, for you, it was like, it wasn't a snap. But it was a moment
Mm.
when you're looking in your closet, right? I wonder what we could offer to people who are struggling with that, their inner Lou and their outer Lou.
Mm.
How
Their
do we
masked
help
and their
people to get to
unmasked.
that real Lou?
Yeah. I have a little story. Oh, go
No,
ahead.
no, please, Kathy, go ahead.
No, I just have a little story about that, because I was actually getting a medical procedure done, and I had just come off anesthesia. You should never talk to people when you're coming off anesthesia. You think you're okay, and you're not. I have a video from them talking to me, and I'm like, I am not. But I did have a conversation with the nurse that helped me, and she said, "Oh, I saw that you're a professional speaker." And she's like, "Oh, I so like," she's like, "Oh, I get so nervous even thinking about it." And in my mind at this point, I thought, I don't get that nervous anymore, right? Where I'm like, she was very, very afraid. You could tell it was something, and she's a nurse. She's not really having to talk to a lot of people. And I remember telling her something, and now it's become something that I say a lot. So I kind of said it in my half, I think, drug induced or whatever, this state where I must have just been flying a little high. But I remember trying to like go, "Oh, it's so easy. You just have to remember that speaking is not for you, it's for other people." And now that's become my thing when I teach people. I say stories are from you, but for them. Presentations from you, but for them. You're running a meeting. The meetings might be, you might be running it from you, but for them. A story that you're telling somebody in a conversation from you, but for them. So really, for me, that's been something when I coach people now, because now transferring my skills to becoming from being a speaker to a speaker coach, that's been my quickest way to get people. It helps a lot when you remove that burden.
Oh my goodness. Kathy, you're so spot on. If I shared with y'all my Hall of Shame talks, okay? The ones that I bombed, the ones that I'm still losing sleep over. Kathy, to your point, I was focused on me and not the audience. Biggest mistake, right? A good speaker walks into a room and says, "Here I am." But a great speaker says, "There you are."
Mm.
And "there you are" is much more powerful than "here I am,"
Yeah,
right?
for
And
sure.
so when I'm nervous about my slides, when I'm nervous about how I'm showing up, what I'm wearing, my accent, and all, when I'm focused on me, Mark, terrible recipe, like it's a disaster, right? But when I'm thinking about just the privilege of speaking to an audience, right? They're giving you their time. This is the most precious resource that we all have. There is no refund for time, right?
Mm.
And so that's a challenge to you, Mark. That's a challenge to you, Kathy, and that's a challenge to me. How can I offer something in return worth their time, right?
Mm.
And it's always that transaction with you and the audience to provide something of value that warrants them being there and paying attention. And when you start to appreciate just how important that and sacred that relationship is, and you just being the vehicle, the vessel through which the message is supposed to come through to help the person on the front row solve a problem, the person in the middle be a better parent, the person in the back be a better leader. That transaction is so sacred. When I started to really appreciate it, and becoming more there you are versus here I am, oh, everything changed. My best and standing ovations are all about the audience. My hall of shames are all about me. So Cathey, your point is spot on because I can share so many stories where I did not apply what you're talking about and how it cost me.
It might be fun to talk about our worst moment.
How much time have you got?
Oh, I mean, just pick one, right? Because I know we've all had multiple. If you're a professional speaker, you've bombed more than once for sure. It might be kind of fun.
All right. I wouldn't even say this is early. This wasn't that long ago, and it'll always stick in my head. So I had gotten this gig because I had done a virtual training and got awesome response because in this virtual training to everything we're saying, it wasn't about me. It's not about me, Marc. It's not about you. It's about everybody in this room. It's about what they need and what they're gonna do. And yeah, that's what I was saying to myself, and that's what I gave. And I remember this one young lady was like, "This spoke so much to me that I'm going to refer you to this." Awesome. Now I'm on my way to this company about to deliver this training. I remember it was a hot August day. I remember I was racing down the streets of Manhattan. The sweat was pouring down my face. Sweat was pouring all up and through. And I'm trying to walk extra slow because I'm thinking if you walk slow in the heat, maybe the sweat won't drop. That's a lie. I get into the building and I'm thinking, all right, where's the AC? Please cool me off because I'm drenched underneath this tie and this shirt. I get into the room and listen, we got energy. I always say speaking is a full contact sport. You know, you're using your body language and everything. Well, I happen to be wearing this very light tan shirt. I probably wasn't even halfway through, and this light tan shirt was soaking wet. It was like a dark brown, drenched, like I had jumped in the pool, turned around, got out the pool, and jumped back in. It was so soaking wet. And I had to finish this training this way. And I remember this one young lady came up to me afterwards and she's like, how do you deal with that confidence? And I go, listen, I'd be lying to you right now if I did not admit that I'm not fully aware that I'm soaking wet in front of you right now, but I had to keep going. I was never called back by that company. And yes, I do believe that I offered value, but that soaking wet shirt, and just the thought about it, right? Lou, you talked earlier about even like sitting in the closet and thinking about it, right? Because as much as I kept going on in that moment, it was about me. It was about the way I was looking. It was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm in this soaking wet shirt. And all of a sudden, it wasn't about them anymore. If I had gone in that closet and thought about it so that I could be my most comfortable self, then I could have been there for them. So that was an epic fail for me.
Mm. Wow. Thanks for being vulnerable and sharing. Cathey, let's hear it from you.
Yeah, mine's a little similar, Mark, just in that. So I was speaking at a conference and they asked me to do this Friday night thing, and then I was going to be the opening keynote for this conference. And that particular Friday night, it was like nighttime is my jam, by the way. Morning's definitely not my jam. So I showed up on Friday night and I was so engaged with the audience. I was connecting with people. I left that room and I was like, that was a really great energy. And people felt it. And you always know, right? We know, because if a bunch of people come up and talk to you after, if people don't, you're like, if they, after when you're done, if they just talk to themselves, you're like, oh, I did bad, huh? So it was really good. And then the next morning I woke up and I was like, oh, I don't feel good. And I made the cardinal mistake, Lou, of going, well, I got this. I could do it. It's
Yep.
about me. I'm tough. I'm strong. I could do it. So I went out there and I tried to do my keynote, and it was such an easy, it was horrible. I bombed. My energy was off. And I could see people in the audience with, like, I could read their faces. Their faces were saying, what did you drink last night? Like, is it a hangover? Like, what happened? I don't
Yep.
drink, by the way. And so the thing that I knew, like the biggest thing I took away from that moment, by the way, is I could easily remove myself from it if I just would have acknowledged the situation. I think had I just acknowledged and said, hey, y'all, I woke up this morning, I wasn't feeling good. So we'll get through this together, right? Like we can do it. I might not be on my tip top energy, but let's go. I think then that would have removed the whole time people going, what's going on? So that was one of the ones that I regret the most because it was a simple, easy maneuver.
See, this is painful just hearing it. You know what I mean? Like
I know.
just hearing your story, Mark, I'm going, oh, and then hearing your story, Cathey, I'm going, man, right? Just it's almost like secondary smoking. Like
Yeah.
just
Uh,
listening to y'all, right? So for me, I mean, this is one of many. So what happened was there was a cohort of young leaders who went through an entire year of leadership training through the Portland Business Alliance. And so they were graduating, and I was going to be the keynote speaker, almost like your black belt story. And I made the mistake of doing my research and reading all about the audience. And these are overachievers. Oh, at age 8, I became a millionaire, or I've done this at age 20, and so forth. Like, the more I read about how amazing these people were, I was feeling smaller and smaller and more insecure and more insecure. And my doubt and fear just rose. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. And so now, how am I going to make up for the fact that I'm dealing or working with an audience that is way, I mean, miles ahead, at least in terms of accomplishments. And so because of it, I thought, okay, let me impress them with a lot of quotes, a lot of books and resources and links so that they can feel like I'm providing the most value. That's all fine, but here's my mistake. I show up, mind you, these people have known each other for a year. You know what my first brilliant idea was? Let's go around the room and tell us, share your name and why this is important to you. And you can just see the look on the audience face like, really? And that took 45 minutes. I had an hour and a half. So I lost 45 minutes on something that provided zero value to them. Zero.
mm,
Like there was no value. And of course, by the fifth person, I'm already realizing how terrible this is, but I got to keep it going. So I literally stayed in there going, oh man. So after 45 minutes of wasting their time, I had to now compress my talk in even less time. So I was rushed.
Mm.
And long story short, I felt like that was one of those times where I didn't feel proud of getting paid, and I wanted to return that check. Like I didn't earn it. I felt like I let them down. So I talked to the organizer, and he said, "Lou, it's okay." But I said, "Listen, I'm gonna come back and do a free training for y'all, just so I can sleep good at night," because I felt like that was one of my lowest moments. And hey, we learn from failures.
Lou, I have a quick question. Yeah, we're all cringing at each other's stories. We're like, oh, in hindsight, what would you have done by the fifth person? Would you just scrap it and like, what would you do different if you were in that same situation again?
Well, first of all, I hope never to be in that situation again.
Just
That's number one. But what number two, to your point, Cathey, you got to cut your losses quickly. Like you gotta eat your shit sandwich right away, and own the mistake, because the audience wants you to succeed. And so when you're nervous,
Yeah.
when you're not doing a good job, they feel it. And
Yeah.
so if you can own it and pivot right away, that's the best way to honor them. Because if you
Yeah.
continue, that was my ego. That was my ego that made me continue. But
Yeah.
if I was really audience centric, I would have recognized it and pivoted.
Yeah. I like that. I like that. And Marc, now that I asked Lou, what would you have done in that moment I mean, you're already there, you're already sweating, everybody knows it. It's the elephant in the room, right? I guess, right? Acknowledge it, or like, what do you think?
If I had nothing else to put on, which at that moment I didn't, yeah, I would. I'd acknowledge it. I try to make light of it as much as I could, and poke fun at myself, and then turn it into a lesson, right? Like sometimes, how do you deal? As a matter of fact, that probably would have been a great thing. We're all worried about what people are thinking. So in this moment, it would be a great one-on-one workshop
Yeah.
for people to learn, and maybe even get everybody else in on that conversation, right? Ask people like, what's the worst possible thing that could happen to you up here, and what would you do about it? Right.
Mm.
And turn that back into it, and make it more of a interactive conversation. That's what I would have done differently. Now I just bring a jacket with me.
Now I never wear tan shirts, right? And I
I
don't
might
run
be hot and soaking wet under here, but I'm wearing this.
Oregon to the rescue. Let's go.
Do it.
Oh, I love this. I'd love for us, I love this sharing of this because anybody watching even if you don't speak professionally, we've all had these moments where we fail. But, all three of us, I think we have a lot of crossover topics that we speak on, and then a lot of things that we don't, that we each individually share on. I would just love for us, especially for you, Lou, for anybody watching, if you don't already know who Lou Radja is, he's one of these people where like if he walked into the room and you did not know who he was before he walked in that room, by the time he leaves, you're like, oh, who is this Lou Radja guy? Just dropping wisdom, dropping bombs on you all the time with knowledge. But Lou, your array, I love that your problem in speaking at the beginning. I remember we used to have conversations like, what do I like cling on to? Because there's so many topics you can speak about. Well, by the way, how did you find your niche and narrow it down?
Yeah, it's been a long journey, Cathey, Marc. You know, you cannot teach what you don't know, and you cannot lead where you won't go. And so there are two sources of learning, OPE and OPE,
Mm.
other people's experience and our own personal experience.
Mm. Mhm.
Our own personal experience is the best library, it's the best vault that we have, because we can speak authentically based on our lived experience, based on our study, based on our skills academy, based on our research. And so that's the sweet spot, right? We want to come from that space, right? And so growing up, leadership was, an obsession because I wanted to figure out how to close the gap between where I am and where I could be. And of all the tools available to me, leadership was by far the best accelerator to make that happen. So that was a no-brainer for me to speak on leadership. Okay. Then when you look at diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging, hello, lived experience. Growing up in the Congo, coming to the US, dealing with all sorts of challenges being from marginalized communities. That's part of my lived experience plus my study. So it was a no-brainer for me to bring that into my menu of topics, right? But check this out, Mark. Check this out, Cathey. Now, I love mangoes, right? I love mangoes. But when I go fishing, right, I'm not going to use mango as a bait because the fish don't care about mangoes, right? So you have to know what the fish want. You're not going to put mango as a bait because that doesn't relate to them. So you have to know your audience. You have to adjust to provide something that the audience want so that it can actually connect with them because you're bringing value to them. So, and that's where studying the market, studying the audience, and then finding those areas where you have alignment so you can actually help them the most is the formula that I use to identify my menu of services. So we looked at leadership, dancing in the rain. Come on, Mark. Come on, Cathey. That's my life. That's literally my life, right? How do you turn adversity into advantage, right? How do you respond to life challenges? These are personal stories, but guess what? It's relatable to the audience, so which made it easier. And then finally, gratitude. Hello, 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 right? And so the more you can be authentic, the more you can be yourself. But when you combine it with what the fish wants, with what the audience wants, now you really have something magical. So that was kind of the algorithm in finding out my topics.
So good. OPE and OPE.
I love that.
Our personal experiences and other people's experiences.
Hold on. I got to talk about the other genius behind that. I love the way you set that up. The difference is OPE versus OPE. As soon as you said the difference is, I was like, wait, it's you just messed with my head. You got the similar letters. Love it.
No, it's so good.
I love it.
It makes me think because, Marc, you also, I think about you as a speaker and you have a different, you've been a world champion finalist, this is like a very storytelling driven, type of speaking, which you are very, 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 very good at. Like storytelling. Oh, come on. Marc Williams, energy, storytelling, boom. Like there's nobody else that can touch that. But Marc, and I know you come from the world of being an educator. Where do you think where did that all come to life for you, like the storytelling especially?
Well, I wanna go back first and say this. I think what ultimately helped me is I was trying to be everything for everybody. Right? I was trying to be the elementary school teacher, and they're awesome. Elementary school teachers are awesome. But I was a high school teacher, right? Elementary school teachers teach every subject. High school teachers specialize in one particular area. I was trying to teach everything to anyone. Just ask me to speak. Please ask me to speak. I'll speak on anything you want me to speak on. And then I realized I can't be everything to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I could make this other comparison, I was trying to be Michael Jackson when I should have learned to be Los Del Rios. What the hell is he talking about? I'll tell you what I'm talking about. Michael Jackson has 1,000,001 or had 1,000,001 hits. When you went to his concert, you listened to everything. He always had to have a new hit. I thought that as a speaker, I always had to have a new hit every place I go. Los Del Rios, Macarena, is considered the greatest one-hit wonder of all time. I'm not saying that you have to speak on one topic, but you got to have your niche. And that was very hard for me to figure out. And I was, Cathey, to your point, I was bringing that educator in all the time. And I wanted to teach so much. And I think that I'm still teaching, but I teach now through storytelling. Because one of my epic fails, I'll go back to that, is I remember getting hired for a 45-minute training on public speaking. And about 2 hours later, and you wonder why people were getting up.
Wait, there's more. There's more. Wait.
I stopped being the teacher and the researcher in front of the room because I go back to Mrs. McIntyre. She had us tell stories.
Come on.
And I feel most comfortable when I'm telling stories. And I found that the stories from my own personal experience
OP.
is what sets me apart from anybody else. We might be talking on a similar subject, but my stories can't be told by anybody else. And my spin on other stories can't be told the way that I tell them. And so I found great joy in finding and telling stories that can then become metaphors for what people wanted to hear from me most. And I say that because I started to realize, yes, there were some people who wanted me to speak because they were like, oh, you're such a great speaker. But then people would ask me, I noticed, to start speaking on certain things. I don't understand how you got through everything you went through. And when people said, I don't understand, what I heard was, I'm going through stuff and I need to get through it too. Can you tell me the story of how you got through it?
Yes.
Right. And so at the end of the day, I'm using my own personal experience to tap into other people's personal experiences so that we can create better experiences together.
Come on, come on.
That's how I got into storytelling.
Ooh, Marc, so good. Lou, I'm gonna go off the rails here for a second, okay? Are you ready?
Let's go.
I want to go back to your OPPE for a second, with your own personal experiences. Now I see beautiful Mama Raja in the back. And, one thing that I know that you and Marc share, oh, this is such a connection that you share, is your love for your moms. And both of you, now that we're talking about storytelling, both y'all are great storytellers. You both have the most amazing connections with your mother and stories about your mom. So Lou, tell us a little about your mom, because I can see her back there and she's so beautiful and smiling at us.
Wow, I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about her. She's an overachiever. She's an overachiever. This whole life business. She rocked the house and only needed 29 years to do it. Okay. See, most folks, want longevity and all this stuff. She was like, this is too easy. And so she did it in 29 years and graduated. And now she's a guardian angel. And she's crushing that too. She's crushing it, giving us the opportunity to live a good life here, right? And I look up to her. I talk to her. I do things on her behalf. And my whole life story. She is a central pillar and figure in everything that I do. And speaking of stories, right? There are four elements to a real understanding of how story relates to others. So I'm really happy to hear what Marc just shared. And then, of course, you, Cathey. I mean, this is what you do, right? And so you got to know your story. That's step number one. Step number two is you got to own your story. That's perhaps the most difficult one. Step number three, you got to share your story.
Mm-hmm.
And then step number four, you got to blend your story. So those are the four levels, right? Knowing your story. I don't care if it's 23 and me. I don't care if it's understanding what your name come from. I don't care if it's, what hospital you were born. The genesis, understanding, knowing your story is level one. Level two of owning your story. That's the tough one because you got to think about sometimes there's shame, sometimes there's trauma, sometimes there's things that you rather not identify with. Sometimes there are scars that you rather not look into, right? But owning it, the good, the bad, the ugly, the rain and the sunshine, all of it makes who you are. People with scars are usually the best healers, right? And so it's a beautiful thing how you can repurpose anything about your life because my father taught me this. Life doesn't happen to you, life happens for you. So now you take everything that you've ever experienced, including losing your mom, right, at age 4, and figuring out how that will serve humanity, how that would serve you in how you're showing up, right? That's the second piece of your story track. And then once you know it, once you own it, you share it differently, Cathey. You share it differently, Marc, because you're speaking authentically and you're relaxed, you're open, you're transparent. And people don't hear with their ears anymore. They start to hear with their hearts. And that changes because you've done the homework on the knowing and the owning. But then to me, the final piece, Cathey and Marc, is when you blend your story, right? That's a new tapestry. So here we are. The three of us are literally doing that in this conversation. We're blending our story. I look at Marc, I get some of what he's talking about, connect with it. I look at you, Cathey, I get something and you get something from me. And here we are. Now we're presenting to the audience a tapestry that individually is okay, but collectively is magic. Collectively is magic, right? And so my mom is very much part of my story, part of knowing my story, part of owning my story, and part of sharing my story, and then finally part of blending my story. So that's the depth of how that helps others in their own journey, in their own stories, to make that happen.
Oof.
Spoke to my heart. You spoke to my heart. One of the most memorable speaking moments for me this year is I was speaking to a group of college students about, interviewing and personal branding. They're getting ready to start their career. And at the end of this talk, I raffled off a couple of books. Not my books. Books that other people have written on this subject. And I remember saying to these group of people, it came to me organically, my mom could not read or write.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so it gives me great pleasure, pride, and joy on behalf of someone who could not read or write to
Mm.
give away books
Mm.
so that you can read.
Oh. Mm.
More than anything else I said that day, I felt it in the room,
Mm.
that connected.
Mm.
My mother was not the academic. She was not the scholar. But the most important thing she taught me was how to feel. And, I think about a recent conversation I had with somebody who says, I'm struggling to speak. This speaking thing is so hard. And I feel that anytime I want to say something, I gotta write it down. And the only way I feel comfortable is if I actually read what I wrote. And she wasn't just talking about presentations, she was even talking about in meetings and interviews and everything like that. And we had a conversation. And I remember asking her about her feelings, about the many different emotions, from the sadness to the joy to the disgust and the fear and all those different emotions. And from that, we pulled out all of these different personal experiences attached to those emotions. And can I tell you, she wrote me a message the other day that said, I was speaking and I was asked a question and I thought about my emotions. And then I came up with this story and she shared the story with me. And she said it was the first time that I can remember not having to feel attached to a script.
Mm.
Come
Oof.
on. Come on.
Oh,
Come
yeah.
on.
I just spoke from my heart.
Come on.
Oh,
Yes.
Mother taught me how to feel.
oh, y'all out there just dropping knowledge. Aw. Thank you both for sharing your mother's stories. Lou, you did something that I was thinking when we were talking earlier. I was like, oh, we should each, share like a big tip. I thought that would be really cool because we've had lots of failures, all of us collectively. We've had lots of successes. Um, and you've dropped so many of them already, Lou, but you're not off the hook. You're gonna end, you're gonna be the one that ends. So I'll start at Mark and then, maybe you can go and Lou can go. I'm just gonna I say this one a lot, but it means so much to me. And it really goes across the gamut, not only of speaking, but in anything that you do in life. And it started when I was a junior in high school and I had went into my first gym and I went there because I was working out to play softball, which I played at the highest level, right? And our coach is like, go work out. So I'm working out at the gym. They had this quote on the back of their shirts that said this thing that I never forgot. And it said, there's no such thing as staying the same. You're either striving to get better or allowing yourself to get worse. And in the context of what we've been talking about today, you we all know speakers that are pretty good natural speakers and they'll plateau at some point because they think they're very good. They say, "Oh yeah, I'm good. I've reached my potential." And I think what you two spoke about a lot today is there is an infinite amount of potential out there. Every new person, every new audience, every new blend. Lou, I love that, right? Every time my story can come together with somebody else's, it's a new formula, it's a new blend. And so I think that if you're somebody that wants to speak, you should be thinking about how you can strive to get better and don't allow yourself to get worse. That would be my tip.
And my tip comes down to one simple word: practice.
Hmm.
Cathey, we use this word drill a lot in Speaker Skills Academy. It's practice. Somebody once asked me about how do I get prepared, and I told them that I do this insane amount of practice, and then I stop myself because once I used the word insane, it sounded like there was something wrong with it. And so I don't describe it as an insane amount. It's a necessary amount. And I've learned that if you wait until the moment of, you won't be your best. There'll be so much anxiety if you wait for the highly anxious moment to tell your story or to say what's on your mind. So practice it. I know it's cliche to practice in front of the mirror or in front of the TV or in front of the window in your house or whatever. Practice. I know it seems like, oh, I just want to get the words down. Get up out of your seat and imagine you're standing in front of that audience and practice. It's not just the words you speak. It's everything about who you are that you've got to practice in the moment so that when you show up in the real moment, you are delivering your absolute best. You have to practice, practice, practice. It's not insane. It's necessary.
Ooh, love that.
Come on, come on, come on,
Come
come
on,
on,
Marc.
come on. Come on now. Cathey and Marc, you've been incredibly instrumental in my personal journey and growth because of your obsession around getting better. To your point, practice, to Cathey's point, you either are getting better or you're getting worse. And I've seen it firsthand. Cathey, you've coached me in presentation, in TED Talks. We've had multiple conversations. Marc, I've followed you through Cathey and your Speakers Skills Academy. I mean, this is what you do. And I don't want to just repeat it because you've already shared it. But I want to just give you your props and your flowers because you help so many people just own that stage and be a vessel for others. Because speaking is just a platform. It's just a tool. It's just a tool. We're trying to impact people. We're trying to solve problems. We're trying to help people heal. We're trying to, that's what we're actually trying to do. And speaking is the vehicle. And so when you help us get comfortable with this, it allows us to have an impact. And so I just want to give you your love, your flowers, and your props because you've been incredibly instrumental in all of our journeys. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then for me, be curious. Oh my gosh, be curious. Oh, curiosity is everything. When you have a beginner's mind, you never arrive. You never arrive, right? Erykah Badu, the man that knows something knows that he knows nothing at all, right? There's a beauty in just knowing that there is infinite information out there. You are just beginning. I don't care how much you know, how many times you've spoken, all of these things. Just keep a beginner's mind. Be curious about everything. Every single human being can teach you something. Every single experience can teach you something. Every single moment you can learn from. So it's endless wisdom, right? And so the more you are consuming it, the more you have relatable point that would help people connect, right? Because now you have so many examples, so many stories, so many lessons and tips that you've gotten just out of curiosity. Curiosity is everything. Having a beginner's mind, and life is the ultimate teacher. And then you just happen to channel it through your speaking.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
That's it.
Wow. Wow. Keep improving, keep practicing. Um, keep being curious among all these so many things that have been shared today. Lou, you were number one. The first time we started all of this, you were the one we called up to bat first. You're special for so many reasons beyond that, but know that you are special, and that's why you were called up first. And now, 10 seasons. Cathey, we've been doing this for 10 seasons. 10, 10, 10.
Hey, let's go.
100 episodes. Ooh.
And that means that Lou, in episode 10 of season 10, we've called upon you again. Because you're special, my man.
Yep.
You're in our hearts. You're in our minds. You're in our souls. Thank you for being an awesome individual. Thank you for kicking this off for us, for launching it, for dropping it, whichever word you want to use. We've been dropping it 100 times. And we're going to keep dropping it, Lou. We're going to keep dropping it. So you just get ready, man. We might call you back in for the 200th or the 300th. You just keep it going, right?
Oh, I'm honored. I'm honored.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Yes.
Y'all crushing it. Much love and gratitude. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And
Thank
for
you,
everybody
Lou.
who's been watching, like, oh my goodness, I could gush over and over again, Cathey. Thank you for calling me on that day during the pandemic. Pandemic was a tough time for the world. You found a way to pull something golden out of it. Thank you.
That's what she does. That's what she does. Appreciate you, Cathey. Yes, very much. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Awesome.
Thank you both for saying yes to this insane idea that I'm not going to describe as insane anymore.
It was necessary for all of us to come together. It's been necessary for 100 plus people to come together. It's going to be necessary for more people out there. And for everybody who's watching, first of all, you got to get in touch. You got to follow this guy, Lou. Lou, can we just stop for a moment? How can people follow this awesome dad, this awesome man, this awesome husband, this awesome speaker, this awesome friend, and this awesome lover of mangoes?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Come on.
come on. I was waiting on that. I was too.
I was like, come on, mangoes.
I was waiting on that. Thank you. Everything is at Lou Radja. That's the easiest way to connect. At Lou Radja, LOURADJA. And you find me on multiple social media platforms. And let's just connect and be of value to one another. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. And for everybody out there watching, let's connect and let's be of value to each other as well. Hit us up as It's About to Go Down show. Marc and Cathey doing this all the time, every time and anytime. We love these idea conversations. It started off with us coaching, and now it's just us having this circular, this triangle conversation about awesome ideas that are being dropped all over the world. Cathey and I absolutely love doing this. We love that you have all joined us and keep watching. And we love the idea of continuing to bring these idea conversations to you every time we get the pleasure of sitting down with awesome people like Mr. Lou Radja. And so, for 100 episodes deep and for 100 more, as we get ready to step into this new year, Cathey, Lou, it's about to go down. Cheers to all of you. May the best thing that happened to us this year be the worst thing that happens to us next year. And with that said, sit on that one for a moment. Sit on that one for a moment.
That's raising the bar.
And with that said, thank you. Thank you. This has been an awesome ride, and it will continue. So join us for the next 100 episodes or more of It's About to Go Down.
Down.
Let's go.